What's going on, guys? So in this video, we're going to talk about Amazon suspensions and appeals. And I know that this is a really big uh, portion of the course, a really big deal when it comes to Amazon because a lot of people get suspended all the time when it comes to retail arbitrage. So you guys need to know what to do, how to prevent, how to get yourself out of something, situation, a sticky situation. There's a lot of things that can happen and where remember I've just managed so many accounts for so long where I've seen the same appeal work on one account and then on the other one it does not, or there's more needed, or there's it needs to go to a different department, or all whatever. You need to send certain things that just look little like even more legit. It's just there's all kinds of little fickle things on Amazon, and that's just unfortunately a reality because it depends on the investigator that's actually reading it. Okay, so we've tried to acquire as much data as we can overall over over a certain period of time, and to kind of know what not to do and what to do. It's just sometimes Amazon is also changing as well. So it's like when you send invoices, or when you send that you haven't sent, that you haven't actually sold it. So you're sending like pictures, screenshots of like you haven't sold the ASAN, and it's literally showing it the past year you haven't sold it. You just need to know like in what scenario, what situation you'd want to be doing that in, and how to kind of use their policies against them. Okay. One thing I want to say though, if you haven't really contacted CJ with Amazon Seller Lawyers, or Casey Vaughn, which I did a video on her, they're both really good. Casey Vaughn's I think a little bit cheaper, but they both handle like everything you need to know when it comes to IP infringements, intellectual property rights, counterfeit, all that jazz. Very important, because those things are like legal matters, and if you need help, they'll write the letters, and they'll also just be able to back you up on the legal basis. Okay. Because they handle it from both sides. If they have people come to them that do private label, that have hijackers that come on their listings, they want to kick them off, and they want a nice little letter written. So if you do that, actually, at some point, it's good for that purpose. But they also know from the other side, for the retail arbitrage, they actually know how to write letters for those retail arbitrage people. So they are definitely, and I've actually talked with them as far as for this group and for this course, being able to kind of back a lot of the course up and be able to be a secondary resource. I'm going to give my 2 cents, because I mean I've written lots of successful appeals. I've had a lot of experience. I've paid for tons of appeals from all these different appeal companies. I've had to fix a lot of them, and actually, to be honest with you, it's like even though some of them were decent, I still had to come in and actually tweak those appeals and rewrite them in a way that just was more customized, or it just was worded in the right way that actually ended up getting it reinstated. Okay, so in a lot of senses, I actually got the accounts reinstated when I'm not going to say the names, but big time companies where they couldn't come through. So I did, and at the end of the day, we learned and became a better better business, better company. But it is important to know the right format, and that's what we're going to go over right here in this video. So format is a big deal. How you word things, how you emphasize things, and all that jazz. But I do want to say this last thing before I even go through it. CJ with Amazon Seller Lawyers does a great job on YouTube of just going over all the little kind of do's and don'ts. So and he actually has a book as well. So definitely suggest reading that. Definitely suggest going through all of what he has to say. And even maybe if you have an issue, talking with him about it, he just gives you guys a lot. He gives a lot. So I definitely suggest contacting them, that firm, and being able to see what they can do for you in certain circumstances. I can do a decent amount, but remember, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a law firm. So it's just like there are limitations. Okay. So, anyways, so here we go. This is just a letter that. It was a random letter that was that actually is a successful letter, but I'm kind of just going to break down kind of the thought process, and then we'll go kind of from there. Amazon sellers didn't write this. I actually wrote this. Um, Most of this was kind of put together from me and another. It was actually another successful appeal that we had that I had tweaked and kind of just. You got to always tweak these appeals. No appeal you can't just be like, oh, hey, this is a successful appeal. Let me just copy and paste it. You need to actually rewrite them, okay, and be specific on certain things, like obviously the date, obviously the specific circumstance. Like it needs to actually like make sense and needs to actually address the real problem. And you're kind of your own words. It's good to reword things. So if you were to say, okay, because I'm going to give a copy of this particular appeal, it's just like on this course, and you can just come in and say, okay, this is what the right format is. Let me just reword it and put it in a way that kind of makes sense for for this investigator that's going to read this. Okay, the investigators can be from anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world. If they're like India or something like that, just keep that in mind. It's just like they might not know they might have the best English. And if you're getting too elaborate and trying to use all these crazy words or whatever, or trying to just write a book to them, they are not going to be able to. You're just going to discourage the crap out of them, and they're not going to reinstate you. Okay, but you obviously want to state your points. You want to state your points. You want to state at the top, in a little paragraph, what you did wrong, what the issue was, and how you kind of in this particular way. I mean, I was just like, we are in no way trying to mislead or giving customers an unsatisfactory buying experience. Kind of defending myself. Sometimes I'll use like a link. I'll put a link of a policy up at the top or something. Or you can put it obviously in the plan of action. But I'll put a link or something that gives me a little bit of say so or pull, so that it didn't look like I'm just pulling something out of my what. I can just actually make it look like I had a little bit of I put a little thought into it, but I actually know what the heck's going on, because Amazon does, and the investigators love to see that you actually do pay attention to the policies. Okay, so if it was an instance, and I'll use this as a perfect example, if it was an instance where they want invoices. Okay, this is one of the most important ones. If they want invoices, and you can use the one section where it's talking about if there was an error, if you believe that there was an error and you did not actually sell these particular items, okay, then write us and give us evidence and to prove that, or to give us your side of the story. And you can say a lot of stuff. Okay, you can say a lot of stuff. You can send screenshots of obviously not selling it, which I was saying earlier. But you're essentially just giving them their own policy. You're using their own policy against them, and then of course at the end of the day you want to reiterate that. So if you were sending invoices and saying you didn't sell the item, if it was I guess an inauthentic. Inauthentics are tough versus IP because in an inauthentic instance, they really will want some type of like invoice just to make sure you're not selling counterfeit. But you can obviously, if you really never sold it, then yeah, you could be good to go. And if it was like if you can obviously prove that, it's going to be more so on your side when you're writing that appeal. If it's something you sold though, that's where you get a little bit it's a little bit tougher. I mean, you could make up the fact and say go a shorter date, like 180 days, if it was something you sold. You actually sold it maybe on a year ago or 6 months ago, but if you were going from 180 days to now and you didn't sell it, you could probably squeak by and get away with that. But I really don't. I'm not a big fan of trying to just get away with it. It's just I'm trying. The goal is to try to be as legit as possible and at least as professional as possible. Even though when you do write like certain things, as far as bullet points, you do want to like. I want to overemphasize certain things. Like certain things I might not actually do that I say. And I'll give you a perfect example. Certain things is like we carefully went through all FBA and FBM like inventory one by one, and had like each and every defect, negative feedback, return, pictures, descriptions, all of them removed, and inconsistent listings one by one. All of them are 100% accurate without showing any errors at all, and they're all matched correctly now, 100%. Like it's just like you're just being like super super like if you know what I mean, like giving them as much as you possibly can is taking this appeal like serious. Okay, you've hired a full-time staff, designated product inventory manager. I always like to say that that's managing 24 hours a day, or the team is managing 24 hours a day. I always mention you've gone through all of your all of the FBA policies, FBM policies, rules, regulations, conditions, guidelines. And this goes for any appeal, by the way. I'm just talking in general at this point. If it's something where it's like you can obviously kind of use some certain lawyer technology or lawyer terminology. Where you can say this, this particular asking for these invoices is baseless when we have never actually sold this item. We attach or screenshots of us never selling the item, stuff like that in bold. So that's something you can obviously say, but there's a lot of different scenarios, and that's why I said this does get a little deep in certain instances, and you do need to kind of just as you start to learn, get better and better at this, or if it depends on the situation, because certain accounts are going to get it, so certain accounts are not. It is important to follow the do not sell list and restricted items list. You don't want to keep listing items that are going to get you in trouble. It is important to I actually think it's kind of nice if you do a little FBA, so maybe a couple, just one or two random products in the FBA, kind of gives you a little bit of legitimacy. I actually kind of like even doing some of the private label stuff, private label drop shipping, or even private label FBA, and sending in some stuff, or just giving it almost makes it look like you're that much more legit when you do that, because Amazon sees your products and stuff. It's kind of a myth that really works, because obviously I've had accounts that we never sent anything in and they never got suspended, but sometimes it's sometimes they do, and unfortunately it is what it is. You don't necessarily, every account's different. Just like I said, every account has a different, depending on when you open it, has a different thing that it has. Sometimes it's you get the like I was saying, the buy not the buy box button, but it's the payout button. Sometimes you don't. Okay, and sometimes they'll pay out. Sometimes they'll pay you. Sometimes they'll hold money. And speaking of which, I have another suspension or appeal right here. If they ever hold money, I'm going to give you guys this. You can actually send them a funds release appeal, and this is something that happens a lot for new accounts. If you go too fast, or if your ODR is messed up, you can ask. If your ODR is actually good though, you can actually pretty much be good to go and send them something like this, and they will possibly get that rolling reserve released. But I do want to say this: if you were using payability, which this is the biggest thing when it comes to payability, and I don't want to get sidetracked. I know we're talking about appeals, but if you are using payability, one of the biggest things about using it is even if they're holding money, typically payability will actually still front you your funds. So that's another reason why it's important to actually have it, because if they were holding, if they were holding money, Amazon was. It's especially with our margins and just being what it is what it is. It is really important to have payability paying you out. Okay, because even if you have all the credit lines, $500,000, $1 million credit lines, it's just having Amazon hold that kind of money is just like it's ridiculous. So you want to make sure that from all angles you're hedged. And so yeah, but we have had money that has been held and successfully released with this letter. So you can obviously say something to this effect, and I will give you a copy of that. But essentially, every little thing has. You can't just send this exact same letter. Okay, you do need to edit it. You do need to kind of put a little bit of effort into it, and kind of explain your scenario, because everything makes a difference, or everything can make a difference depending on like what's going on. Okay, you need to be able to evaluate. The reason why appeal services are also extremely valuable is most of them, including mine, can actually break down what exactly you're suspended for. What is the real reason? Okay, because a lot of times you'll write appeals and you won't even know what it is you're suspended for. Like you'll say it's one thing, and then it's like no, it's something else, or no, it's two things, or no, it's three things, and you didn't address all of them. Sometimes they'll tell you. Sometimes they'll tell you in the appeal that, oh, so we've received your last appeal, but your plan is not complete. Okay, that's probably the most frustrating thing email that I've ever gotten. And you can do a great job writing your appeal, and they literally want more. And sometimes they'll do it again. They'll be like, "Oh, we need more," and you're just like, "I just sent you a crap ton." And I've seen instances where you send them the letter and they don't accept it, and then you send them the same letter again and change like nothing, like one sentence, and then they accept it. Okay, so it is investigator based. So that's the reason why it's frustrating on Amazon. Like it's when from that perspective, and I just want you guys to all know that is the one thing that pisses me off the most when it comes to writing appeals, because sometimes what works for like 9 out of 10 appeals, the one appeal, it's like it doesn't work, and you have to do all these. You jump through all these hoops for all these for this one particular account, and sometimes it's not even the right. I don't know. There's just like a little fickle thing about it. You have to send all this other stuff, or I don't know, just go through all this craziness that you didn't have to do for the other accounts. So that's one of the things that really does frustrate me. But anyways, we'll be able to handle most of this, and so will CJ. So will, if you're using Casey Vaughn, I mean there's a lot of support for this. So that's the one thing that I was saying, that it separates us from the pack, just because you're going to be able to always be safeguarded and have some type of support. Okay, so it's important to be able to be proactive, but it's also important to be professionally proactive. You don't just be an idiot and just write stuff. I'm not, because sometimes obviously if you're sending stuff and it's if you don't know what you're sending or why or to who, it's not just obviously the letter that you're sending. You need to be able to send it to the right person in some scenarios, because if it's notice dispute, or if it's just like a PQ review, or if it's Jeff at Amazon, or if it's, I don't know, there's a lot of different managers we have that we can send to. There's a lot of different strategies depending on the letter, depending on the denials, or depending on what they want or asking for. There's just a lot of stuff. Okay, so and one thing, I mean, if anytime you see an email, if you're sending it to PQ assessment or whatever, PQ assessment, anytime it's PQ anything, PQ is actually an ASAM. Like there's a specific ASAM department. The suspension, the suspension or appeal departments, or the people that receive and review stuff, there's like specified departments that will actually analyze certain things. Okay, and if it's PQ anything, they're just looking at like that particular item. Okay, so it could be authentics, it could be like I don't know, just dangerous items, or it could be something that is suspicious. There's a lot of scenarios that can happen, and they want to make sure that that specific ASAN is okay, or that particular listing, it was damaged, or I don't know, there was some type of safety hazard or something, and they're just going to take the item down, or you can't sell it. It's just random things like that. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff that can really mess with you, but that's the whole thing, that it's really valuable for what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that you can handle every scenario, and always be safeguarded. So even though Amazon is easy when it comes to making money, it's really not when it comes to you're trying to keep it. Okay, so you definitely want to know what where the ins and outs of this particular part of the business, because it's only going to make you feel better, and it's going to make you obviously more secure in your business. Thanks, guys.